With all the latest headlines for you now this Wednesday lunchtime, it's the ITV News.
Champion of the underdog, the shock and sadness at the death of Paul O'Grady.
Now you'll have to excuse the way I'm dressed because I've just come straight from work.
Comedian, campaigner, TV presenter and pioneer. He performed as himself and as Lily Savage, changing the lives of so many who saw him and his creation on mainstream TV. The Queen Consort and Sir Elton John have led the tributes to the star who has died unexpectedly, aged 67. Also this lunchtime. Checking out asylum seekers to be moved from hotels to RAF bases. Human rights campaigners say the government's plan is grossly inadequate. Why many hard-up families are missing out on free school meals. And touchdown, the King's first overseas trip as monarch to Germany.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hussain.
Good afternoon. In life, Paul O'Grady entertained and campaigned. In death, his talent, his passion and his achievements have been praised by the Queen Consort, Sir Elton John, the broadcasting giants and all those impacted by his support. Battersea Dogs and Cats Home perhaps summed him up best. He was, they said, the champion of the underdog. An active campaigner for animal welfare and LGBTQ+ rights, Sir Elton thanked him for all his work in the fight against AIDS and HIV, saying, "Thank you for all the joy you brought into the world, Paul. You went places nobody had gone before." He did that through his alter ego, Lily Savage, and through his award-winning broadcasting career as himself. Nick Wallace looks back at the performer and the pioneer.
The blonde bobside herself, Miss Lily Savage.
When Paul O'Grady's Lily Savage first sashayed into our front rooms in the early 90s, there was simply no one else like her.
Well, good evening and welcome to my little show. Now you'll have to excuse the way I'm dressed because I've just come straight from work. But I thought
Savage was Paul O'Grady's passport to a successful career, hosting multiple TV shows with an acerbic and self-deprecating wit.
I'm not drunk, it's these mules that are death trap. Honest to God, Bob, I haven't had a drop.
O'Grady took a risk when, in 2004, he retired his more famous alter ego and began presenting TV programmes as himself.
Talking of nets, George Osborne, what do we think? Is it up or is it down? Do you know what? I'd sooner have Ozzy Osbourne as Chancellor.
The British public responded to his warmth and he became more popular than ever.
It feels very odd to talk about Paul in the past tense because he was such a force of nature and actually always, I mean, I'm talking about him now and I'm smiling and I think that really says it all. A couple of times when I was on his show, it was just like being in his house. You know, it was just like having a conversation. He was the master.
His close friends today spoke of Paul O'Grady's passion for life.
He was a fighter. And he was a fighter. He never judged the weak. He never judged the vulnerable. He never judged the misunderstood. He would be there like a lion for them because back in the day, he'd been a social worker. He'd rescued babies and children from domestic abuse. He'd lived all that.
O'Grady learned his performing skills in London's gay clubs. He was famously hosting a night at the Vauxhall Tavern in 1987 when the police raided. O'Grady continued to champion gay rights and the community which made him.
Times have changed, but also you think 4 hours away on a plane in Chechnya, you know, gay men and women are being tortured and murdered. So we need to keep the profile up and we need to be visible and we need to be very vocal.
Today, Sir Elton John called O'Grady a brilliant entertainer and supporter, adding, "Thank you for all the joy you brought to the world. We will miss you very much." O'Grady's empathy for animals found new audiences in later life, particularly his work with the Battersea Dogs and Cats Home on ITV's For the Love of Dogs series.
No, don't be looking at that. That's not on the menu. Leatherette is not a good diet for a beautiful dog like you. This is it now. She can't resist. Oh no.
This work also brought him into contact with royalty.
There are a lot of people out there like you and I who love taking in dogs who want homes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
The joy that you get out of them.
Today, Camilla, Queen Consort, paid tribute to O'Grady's warm heart and infectious humour, saying he lit up the lives of so many. Paul O'Grady is survived by his husband Andre, who says he will be greatly missed by his loved ones, friends, family, animals, and all those who enjoyed his humour, wit and compassion.
I'm joined now by a friend of Paul O'Grady's, broadcaster Pete Price in Liverpool. First of all, our condolences, Pete. When we think about Paul O'Grady, how do we begin to quantify his impact? So many people have said today he simply changed their lives by bringing Lily Savage to a mainstream audience, and his campaigning for LGBTQ+ rights, on AIDS, on HIV. How do we begin?
We've lost a great star, and the shock is horrendous. People on Merseyside are in disbelief over it. But Paul O'Grady, when he created Lily Savage, it was his family, it was the people he met when he was a social worker, and when he was Lily, he took no prisoners. But he knew when to hang the frock up, because he knew he had more to give, and he really did. He gave so much. Last time I interviewed him, I'll never forget, I was speaking to him on the ring. I said, "How are you?" He said, "Oh, I'm having a cup of tea, I'm having a cup of tea." Meh. I went, "Pardon?" He said, "I'm just having a meh." I went, "Paul, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I've got a baby lamb here, needs feeding. It's in bed with me." I mean, he took no prisoners at all. He was amazing. And I helped him, and he always says that I helped him go to mainstream. He was working in a theatre in Liverpool, and he came on my show for 3 hours and every ticket sold out. He made the transition, but he changed television in a tea time. Incredibly, he got millions of listeners to his show and viewers. He brought all the famous people in. So he changed television. He's made so many inroads to show business. And Scylla was one of his dear friends. Barbara Windsor was one of his dear friends. He'll be up there now, and they'll be going, "What's all this fuss about? What's going on?"
I really do hope so. Look, in the Commons today, this lunchtime, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Angela Rayner, described him as a true northern star. What's the one thing you'll remember about him?
Oh, so many stories that I can't tell you, because he was one of life's characters. But I will remember, he sends me flowers every Christmas. I get flowers. They were getting smaller this year, and I rang him up and said, "Not as much money spent," and I got the abuse. I will miss him when he makes the entrance. I was looking forward to seeing him at the Empire Theatre in Annie as Miss Hannigan. He was the most evil Miss Hannigan you've ever seen in your life, and they loved him. He will be sorely missed. He's our last great star.
Yeah, and what about, the campaigns, if we're talking about animal welfare or LGBTQ+ rights, those campaigns, they will really miss his input and how active he was in both of those fields, right?
He was indeed, because he was my generation. I'm older than him, but we were in the years when homosexuality was illegal. So we've been in the forefront of campaigning all the time. And his love for animals, I think he loved animals more than human beings. And he did so much. I remember one Christmas, he said, "I'm not doing panto again. I'm leaving the panto. I'm fed up with it." And I rang him up and I said, "What are you doing now?" He said, "I'm digging me sheep out and I'm missing panto."
Pete Price, a very difficult day for so very many people, but it is good to have an opportunity to look back on everything that Paul O'Grady achieved. Thank you very much for joining us this lunchtime. Thank you. Well, as Pete and I were talking about there, Paul had close and deep ties to animals, in particular to Battersea Dogs and Cats Home. Faye Barker is there this lunchtime and just sent this.
Well, Battersea Dogs and Cats Home has been home for 11 series for Paul O'Grady's For Love of Dogs. He had a massive impact here, an ambassador for over 10 years, meaning so much to everyone here. I can now speak to Sean Opperman, the veterinary director. I'm sorry it's such a sad day today. Just tell us about the impact Paul O'Grady had here. Goodness me, I mean, Paul has been just a massive presence for us in the last 10 years, an on-site presence throughout that time. He's been the best ambassador you could wish for, not just for Battersea, but for the rescue sector generally. You know, for all these dogs that have had this shaky start, to get the best possible care and then find a loving home. He homed, I believe, around 6 of the dogs from here. We've got a couple running around with us now. I mean, what did that impact have? You know, why do you think he had this special connection? Well, this is the thing. I mean, the first dog was a cesarean that I did in the first series, and he just took one of those puppies on and he never looked back. He'd always say, "Oh no, you're going to make me take another one of these dogs home with me, aren't you?" And that love shone through. You can't fake it. It was apparent to us, and I guess to all the people that watched the show in their millions. And quite a sudden and very sad departure suddenly we've heard about today. Now we're in a position of looking to Paul O'Grady's legacy. I mean, what do you think that will be, especially here at Battersea, which was such obviously a huge part of the last 10 years of his series he did? I think the exposure he's given to the sector, for us just to showcase all the work and expertise we put into these dogs and cats to get them loving homes, and for the sector in general, it's been massive. I can't overestimate that. Well, our thoughts are with everyone who knew him yourself. I mean, just a final little thought of, in a few words, what you thought of him generally. My memories of Paul will be laughter. I can't tell you what fun it was to film with him. He was so easy to film with, put everyone at their ease, and we just had such a lot of fun with him. Well, thank you for your time. I know what is a sad day. And for those who were a fan of the show, there's a special episode where Paul O'Grady was with Camilla, the Queen Consort. That has been aired tonight on ITV at 5 p.m. in tribute to Paul O'Grady.
Faye Barker there on Paul O'Grady's life, contribution and legacy.